Hello and welcome back to the podcast, What to Say and What to Send in Property Management. My name's Lee Woodward and joining me again this week is Mr. Nathan Pensini. Nathan, welcome back.
G'day Lee, great to be here.
Nathan, let's discuss compliance, a very serious topic and one that people miss at times, and that looseness can get us into some serious trouble. I know on the podcast we interviewed the incredible Max from Detector Inspector, and I was blown away with what I learnt on that, and we've included that in our audios for people who are attending the Complete Property Management Day. But take us into your perspective, what we need to know about compliance, and what have you been instructing property managers to keep an eye on?
I guess compliance is important because at the other end, as you've just indicated, it's a nightmare. So, and I'll start at the back end for reasons to identify why we do this. When you're a tribunal, and you're sifting through the paperwork and you're looking at the notes, and you need to have every single note that was made on that property, every discussion that was made, all those sorts of details there. So that's one reason why compliance is important. Now we'll go back to the start. So when we're talking about recording conversations, notes must be entered. The minute you've done the phone call, you've jumped on the phone, you've called the landlord, letting them know that the tenant's 3 days behind in arrears. It's simply not good enough to say that I've had the phone call. Notes need to be made in the system. The next step as part of that process is to send the text message to say, just confirming this is what we spoke about. And then, of course, sending the email backing that up as well. So compliance is important to recording in that fashion. And if we talk about Max, Max is absolutely brilliant. As you know, Detector Inspector has been brilliant in the world of compliance. What we learned from Max is that there's so much more than just smoke alarms. We're talking about gas, we're talking about blinds and cords, we're talking about electrical compliance there and making sure that those safety switches are involved. So it covers a whole range of things. And for me, it's about checking, and checking again.
Now, I would have thought this was common knowledge, but I've learnt since working in the property management space it's not. But centralised communication. The text message comes from your software, not your phone. The email does not come from your Outlook. It comes from the system. And that's what makes it traceable, trackable. And if a team member's to move on, everything's still centralised back to the property, which is our source of truth. And Nathan, even in this exercise of working with property managers right now, you and I have decided to rewrite all the communications that were predominantly email into text-based messaging, as we get such a far better response from the tenant, the consumer, the landlord, that, they can't say, oh, that email, I didn't see it, it went to my junk, I must have missed it, versus when the bank's sending you through a code for you to unlock your bank account, it's always by text. Text is still the most direct method of communication.
Yeah, totally it is. Our phones are in our pocket all the time. We got our watches on, our Apple Watches, Garmin's, whatever we wear, and it vibrates, comes up on there. So you're right. I think the text message is the notification system and the email is the storage system, in other words. So for me, it's that backup confirmation, but sending it out in text message is so important. And coming from the system, you're right. It doesn't come from our number. It comes directly from the system. It all gets recorded. You can text people in and out of there. And that is absolutely the basis of what we're doing.
And keeping up with compliance, a law changes. I know in Victoria we've had so many legislation changes and it's been very difficult for the property managers to keep up with that down there. But it is part of our role to keep up with what's going on in compliance, because if we get caught out, it's not just a fine. It can be even more serious than that. And I think that's when our job in property management and compliance really needs that business maturity to stay on top of it.
Yeah, it does. And you're right. We've also had changes in New South Wales happen at the end of last year, and we've got some new ones coming up as well. And across the states, I guess what we're trying to do there is bring that alignment in. But staying on top of those changes are important, and there are ways in which you can do it. You can have external trainers and coaches come in. And there's also webinars being held by the relevant authorities in the different states as well. So staying on top of that is so important, because tenants, as much as they are in the sales world, in terms of buyers are researched, tenants are also researched. So they have an understanding of the rules. We need to make sure that we have that same understanding and we're as strong as them or stronger.
Well, I learned so much from the interview with Max that we're going to actually cross to that interview now. And as we go through this, you mentioned this before, there was so much more that came up of what you need to keep an eye on and how technology, how AI is assisting with that and the efficiencies that is coming into property management. I think a lot of people listening to this next part of the audio won't know what they didn't know and what is actually going on a national level. Let's cross to our interview with Max from Detector Inspector. Hello and welcome back to the podcast, What to Say and What to Send in Property Management. Today, we have one of our special features, and we all talk about what to say, what to send, but today is what to understand. And today I'm going to be discussing compliance. In the event of an incident, are we covered? What should we have done? And why so many great property management companies are now moving to a far better solution that's airtight, only in their lane doing that. Please welcome from Detector Inspector, Mr. Max Gilmour. Max, welcome aboard.
Thanks, Lee. I really appreciate you having some time for me.
Thank you for having the time for us. We've got a lot of people out there that must be at home one night. They're watching the news. There's a house fire in their area and they think, that's one of ours. You would just stop in your tracks to think, have we done everything we should do? And that's what I want to make the theme of our program today. But first, from the beginning, because you used to be out there in the field, Max, give us your background and how you got to do what you're doing now.
Alrighty. Well, this goes back about 12 years, Lee. So I actually started my career with Detector Inspector as a smoke alarm technician. So I was working part-time at uni and needed something to pay the bills. My stepmom was actually a property manager and she used Detector Inspector for her smoke alarm servicing, back then, 12 odd years ago. So I took the job, did it for about 12 months. It was great to learn about the business really from the ground up. We then moved into sort of a growth phase of the business and the founders asked me if I'd be interested in a new business development role with the company. So I did that in Victoria, where I'm from originally, for about 4 years. And then there was a sort of next stage of growth was sort of hitting us. And I took a role based in Sydney to grow a business in New South Wales. So I moved up here in 2017 and I've grown the business in New South Wales to about 110,000 properties on the smoke alarm service. And I now look after Queensland and South Australia and Tasmania as well. And then we've got a couple of sales directors who run the sales team in Victoria.
Absolutely amazing. And Max, I wanted you to say that because, you know, whenever we bring someone on this program, there is a validation process that we go through of, were you ever in the field? And the fact you're out there in the field gives a completely different perspective to the role you're doing now. And Detector Inspector, our listener right now could have just been joined property management. They maybe have a challenge where something's happened in compliance and they're looking for a digital system integration process rather than relying on, we're going to send out an electrician and that electrician's going to be analog. They're not digital in giving us our compliance. So just take us through, what does Detector Inspector actually offer?
No problems, Lee. So we're a safety and compliance business. We're tech-enabled, so our platform that we've built really drives the services that we deliver. So our core business is smoke alarm maintenance. So we deliver that in Victoria, Tasmania, New South Wales, Queensland and South Australia. Now, in Victoria, we also offer gas and electrical servicing in that market, as there's regulation in rental properties for gas and electrical checks to be done every 2 years. So we rolled out that component of the business about 4 years ago now. We've got some additional sort of add-on services, we call them, that are bolted onto the smoke alarm service. So in New South Wales, we'll do water efficiency checks, corded blind compliance, and RCD safety switch testing. We'll do those same additional services in Queensland. In South Australia, we offer RCD checks and corded blind compliance as well. And then in Tasmania, it's just a straight smoke alarm servicing. And then we are looking to enter the Western Australian market at the moment. So we'll be offering smoke alarm and RCD checks there as well.
Wow, I didn't know that myself, that it's smoke alarm safety, gas, electrical, corded blind, which is a huge issue out there, water efficiency, safety switch testing, and then also essential fire safety. What is that one?
So the essential fire safety, it's commercial fire safety. So it's sprinkler systems, exit lights, fire doors in commercial properties. So that's a division we run just in Victoria at the moment. That's a growing division of our business, but a lot of the real estate agencies we work with have commercial divisions. So that's why we've created that department to service those clients as well.
Max, take me into the home safety plan that you actually offer. And I imagine when one of the inspectors is out there, we may think they just do the smoke detector, but we've already just discussed all those other services. But what is the safety home plan?
So our plans differ market to market. But in Victoria, as I said, we'll do your smoke alarm checks on an annual basis and the gas and electrical checks on a biennial basis, so every 2 years. Now that really ticks off all the major compliance requirements for the Victorian market. The other markets will do the smoke alarm checks and the add-on services as required. But we're really looking to become a one-stop shop for compliance requirements across the board. And what has really driven our service offering is what has been legislated state by state. So, example of that is in Victoria, by the end of December of this year, of 2025, they're mandating court of blind compliance as a requirement. So we're now looking to roll out the court of blind checks in Victoria in line with that legislative requirement to assist our Victorian agencies to tick that box without having to go to a third-party provider. And that's really what we aim to do across the board.
Now, Max, I was looking at the software today. You very helpfully took me through what it looks like. I wanted to gain visibility myself before having these discussions. And it's pretty amazing that you can log into this dashboard and there's the snapshot report showing you how many properties you've got, how many are compliant, not compliant. And then that manages the access for the tenant. And if the tenant's being a little bit difficult for us to get access, there's a little wizard there that can manage all that compliance and take you through the emails and so forth you need to send. But it seems to be this is going to take a lot of weight off the property manager knowing the actual Detector Inspector platform is following its own sequence of compliance on behalf of the property manager.
Absolutely. And I think that's how our business has evolved over the years. It's very much in the compliance management platform that we've created, because it's one thing to go out to a property and do a gas check or an electrical check or a smoke alarm check, but it's really what comes before that to identify which properties require what services, to arrange the access with the occupants in the properties and get the services completed. So we've built out a compliance management platform that as you've mentioned, it will highlight any compliance gaps within a portfolio. So you can see which properties are compliant, which ones are not. We find that most property management businesses will have, X number of properties on management. Not every landlord has accepted a service. So we will be able to filter to the surface which properties are not currently enrolled through our integration with their property management software. A big thing for property managers is they have, lots of tasks to manage, and sometimes it's not always clear what they need to be doing. So through our platform that we've created and recently upgraded, there's an actions required section. So we will tell the property manager if there are any outstanding quotes that need to be actioned to allow us to continue the process of making property compliant. Are there any access difficulties that we are having where maybe we can't get access with a tenant? So we'll highlight that, and then as you mentioned, there'll be a number of steps the property manager can take to clear that access issue to allow us to get the booking completed.
And Max, in doing my research, you actually have a book on behalf function that allows the property managers to book an appointment for the tenant directly from your portal, which is amazing. How else is the platform helping our property managers?
There might be pending invoices that need to be paid that we're going to highlight to them there as well. So that's sort of the first component. And it's really giving them a full snapshot of their compliance so they know where they're sitting. Are they sitting in a healthy, safe place, or is there major sort of compliance concerns within that business? You can then drill down to portfolio levels. So you may have an agency that manages 1,000 properties, for example, and there's 5 property managers managing 200 properties each. You can see the compliance levels within each of those portfolios. So there may be a property manager that has amazing landlords who have all taken up the services and having their properties made compliant. And there might be other portfolios where the landlords are a bit trickier or not as willing to join a program like this and have their properties made compliant. So you can see where the gaps are at a property manager or portfolio level, which is really important as well.
And Max, just on that, so let's say we run the software over the portfolio, we can see there's this gap, and it could have been their original provider is no longer available, or it was being done by an electrician, we don't know. but it will identify, let's say it's 255 properties out of the portfolio, but you've then got the ability to communicate through to those landlords as part of the lead generation process to bring compliance to their attention that this is the solution for you.
Absolutely. A big challenge that we found property managers were facing was they had a portion of their rent roll that was not enrolled with a compliance provider. And it was a massive task and undertaking for them to communicate out and collate all the responses. So to remove that workload from the property managers, we built a different platform. We called our campaign management platform, where emails can be created. They are approved by the property manager to make sure they're happy with the wording. We then get something called domain authority, which allows us to push out the emails from the agency's email account. It goes out to the landlords, letting them know of their compliance obligations. So again, state dependent on what the compliance obligations are. We'll let them know the agency's engaged Detector Inspector to do the compliance checks for their properties. And it will then give them a link to a form where they can opt themselves in or out of the service. So when they click that link, it takes them to a form, an online form that is dual branded with the agency's branding and Detector Inspector, goes into detail about the services that are being offered and the associated pricing. And then the owner can opt themselves in or out. If they enroll themselves, they then basically will move through the enrollment process onto our platform. If they decline the service, it will let them know of the risks associated. It will let them know that the agency, so the managing agent, and Detector Inspector will not be responsible for those compliance obligations, and they'll need to manage them themselves. They will then get an automated PDF audit trail showing that they've opted themselves out of that service. Then they'll need to manage the compliance themselves. So what that means is the property manager, apart from approving the templates, there's very little work involved for them. We can then communicate out, close that compliance gap for them by communicating with the owners. The owners that are happy to take up the service will get enrolled and their properties will be made compliant. And then the owners that want to opt themselves out and manage it themselves externally can do so. But it's remove that liability from the property manager to get those compliance checks done, which is the aim of the game.
Wow. I'd do it just for that. That as a property manager, I made a recommendation. We sent you the digital form to activate this service. You chose to opt out on this date, which means you're taking full responsibility for that smoke alarm not being done, because our recommended solution was to have a compliance program look after it. And even with that, you've got the auto invoicing that goes out to them to also reduce that for the property managers as well.
Absolutely. So our portal, is one benefit of using our service. We integrate with the major property management platforms out there. So Colmeo, Property Me, Property Tree, Managed App, Our Property. And so those integrations, they remove a whole heap of work from the property managers. So property managers aren't needing to update tenant details or key numbers or property manager names themselves, and properties move through a portfolio. As soon as they update one of those details in their system, it'll automatically update our system, removing the need for them to do those updates. So that's the first piece of it. The second is that, as you said, our system through that integration will push our invoices directly from our system into their software for automatic disbursement. So that's with Property Me and Property Tree and Managed App as well. So that just saves the accounts department time from manually uploading those invoices. To go one step further, we've done a future, a next iteration of our integration with Property Tree, where we will actually push our compliance reports, smoke alarm, gas, electrical, service dates, next due dates into their software directly from our system. So it will appear in the compliance register, the checks that were done, when they were next due to be serviced, service reports are all appearing in there. So it just saves the property manager from having to log into another platform to collect that information. And it's just a really, really fantastic experience through the automation for the property managers using that platform.
And Max, I had a look at the service reports today. They look stunning. It looks like a really nice report where we've got the icons, everything's there, very professional. And as a landlord myself, receiving that, everything's under control. We're compliant. So for anyone listening to this now who needs to go through that changeover, I know you do the compliance solution training, take them into the portal and do the actual dashboard snapshots and get them live. What's the activation process to come over to Detector Inspector?
So given that compliance requirements are regulated in most markets, so you have to do your annual smoke alarm checks in Victoria, in New South Wales. In Queensland, the smoke alarm checks are driven by lease renewal. So upon a new lease or a lease renewal, you need to get your smoke alarm checks done. The gas and electrical checks in Victoria are done every 2 years. In Tasmania, it's an annual smoke check. And South Australia doesn't have annual smoke alarm check legislation as such. However, it's best practice to get it done annually, and that's the same with Western Australia. You do have to have working smoke alarms installed in your property in all those markets. That's an Australian standard. So it's very rare to find an agency that doesn't have anything set up, because they're all the regulations have been in place for a number of years. So typically, when someone joins Detector Inspector, they're coming across from an alternative provider. It could be an electrician, it could be another compliance provider. We need the client to provide us with a list of properties that are being serviced by their existing provider. Now, if it's an agency or a provider that has their own online platform, our onboarding team will actually collect that information on their behalf once they're provided access. They'll get a list together of the properties that are being serviced, their last due service dates, their next due service dates. Once we've got all that information, we will work out if the client would like to arrange a communication out to all of their landlords. So if they would like that, we'd use that campaign management platform that we spoke about earlier. And an email can go out saying, "Dear landlord, we've engaged Detector Inspector as a replacement service provider. These are the reasons we've chosen to partner with Detector Inspector. They're Australia's largest provider. They've got, a workforce of 500 odd smoke alarm technicians, gas fitters, and electricians. They've got a very detail-rich service report that provides compliance assurance. They have built a deeply integrated platform that will connect with our systems." So all those sorts of benefits. And then let's know that we're going to take over the servicing. Once that has been communicated out to the owners, if the agency so wishes, we enroll those properties onto our service with their next due date set, invoicing details set in there as well. From there, we will arrange the training, as you mentioned, on our platform, on our processes with those property management teams. Make sure we've got our systems set up correctly for them. The communications are going to the right people, that, the receptionist may be getting the keys and the accounts getting the invoices. If there's any access issues, they usually go through the property managers. But it's very bespoke how we set up each agency, depending on how they run their business. It's not a hard and fast, one-way setup. We'll cater to each client. And then from there, once the training has been completed and the properties are enrolled, we're off and running. And now it's important to note that we provide an account manager to each client that we work with. The majority of our account managers in our business are all ex-property managers. So they really understand the needs of their clients, because they've all done it themselves. And to your point at the start of the podcast, having walked the walk themselves, they really connect well with their clients and understand the challenges that come as sort of standard property management business, and are able to provide that really high level of support that comes with that experience.
Absolutely amazing. And my final question for you is a difficult one, and that's, not all providers are equal. Why is that, Max? Where do you guys see yourself different?
So I think going in to a property and doing a smoke alarm inspection or a gas or electrical inspection, anyone can do that. You've got to be a gas fitter or an electrician to do the gas and electrical checks, but it's really what comes before and what comes after. So a company like us, as mentioned, will really surface compliance gaps within a business. We'll help you close those compliance gaps. It's very, very important that you've got the right technology implemented into your business if you're going to be managing such an important thing as compliance. So we find that where we really stand out from the pack is sort of through that technology. We've got audit trails for all communication with a landlord when accepting or rejecting a service. There's communication logs for all communication attempts with a tenant of a property when we're trying to gain access. So if something was to go wrong, we've got the audit trail showing all those contact attempts. The automation, obviously, I've talked about, and that streamlines so much of the compliance for the property managers. And not everything's automated. We're still a people business, and we're working with with the real estate industry, which is very much a people business. So people are still a very important part of it. But if we can automate and remove workload and give those little time hacks back to the property managers, we'll absolutely do that. But I think it's the overall compliance management and compliance assurance we're able to provide through our reporting and our transparency, which really what sets us apart from other providers in the industry.
Well, Max Gilmour, that was a brilliant interview, and I learnt so much myself today. You don't know what you don't know. And in going through that with you, having a look at the software, and for all our brand new property managers who didn't know what compliance solution training is about and what platforms are available, I think this has been an excellent interview. And Max, I want to thank you for contributing your time to our program.
Thanks, Lee. Appreciate you having me.